Mr. Jim Lippie, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. It's always fun to hang out with you and talk MSPs and software.
Awesome. We're going to talk MSPs and software. We're also going to talk about you and your origin story and what led you down this path. We'll get into into what you're doing these days, which is really exciting. And we were just talking backstage about how fast you guys are moving, just how much the waves that you're making in this industry. It's really awesome to see. But we'll get there. We'll get there in due time.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now you're dialing in from sunny Florida, which is I'm very jealous.
Yes. So, live in Boston and New York, but every March, my wife and I would come down to spend the month down here in Tampa. And it's been good timing because we've got a lot of snow up north. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I grew up playing ice hockey, and I spent every weekend in an ice rink with my son. But it's just the outdoor elements, the cold. I'm in the Mid Atlantic, so it's not nearly as bad as it is up in New England. But I'm just getting old and curmudgeonly and ready for Florida, I guess. So
yeah, exactly. So I've got an 18-year-old son, and he's played varsity basketball since he was a freshman. So, a lot of basketball games in the wintertime up north. So he graduates from high school this year. So next year, instead of March, it'll probably be January, February, and March because I'm not a fan of the cold anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, that makes two of us. Good. So look, you're one of the names in this industry that, just about everybody who's anybody knows, right? You've had I think the great fortune of being on, a couple sides of this marketplace, probably four sides of this marketplace. I don't know if there's four sides, right? But, kind of been on the MSP side. You've been on the side of an investor, right? You've been, at one of the largest, if not the largest platform in this marketplace, in Kaseya. And then now you're on the emerging vendor side, right? So you've seen this channel, you've seen this marketplace from so many different angles, which I think it's exceptionally unique in this marketplace. And so, yeah, so I guess, but let me take a step back before we get there. So that's, I normally try not to be too scripted with this, but I've got a whole bunch of questions and I might be jumping ahead. So let's take it back, right? Let's take it back to, Jim in early days. Was there like a tech spark? Was there kind of a moment back in the day that, tech was a thing, or it's just by happenstance and just dumb luck that you kind of came into the whole IT space?
Yeah, it was kind of dumb luck. Yeah. So I started my professional career in management and organizational development consulting. And, I was with a firm for 7-8 years. It was my dad's company, and he was a great mentor to me. And, we did work with telecom companies and manufacturing companies. And I went to Boston University, and I came out of school, and that's what I did with him. But I had a bunch of friends that were going into what the time was, IT outsourcing, right? No one really even talked about MSPs back then. So this is now 2003, and I've been doing the consulting thing for a while, and I've reached out to a friend of mine to have lunch with him, and he tells me all these great things that's happening at this company called Thrive Networks. So I ended up pitching them on an organizational development proposal to help them with their growth and scaling and all that. And I ended up talking to the CEO and the president, and they said, we're not going to end up going with your proposal, but we are hiring a director of business development, and we think you'd be ideal for the role. So it was good timing because I had been thinking about technology, and that was really kind of a missing, one of the missing holes, or one of the holes, I guess, in my resume. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to start working toward getting into the technology field and industry, because it's not going anywhere. You didn't have to be a genius to figure out that technology was where everything was going to be back in 2003. So I ended up deciding to take the role. And then within 2 years, they named me CEO of that MSP, Thrive Networks. And then in December 2006, ended up selling to Staples. So we were the first MSP to sell to a Fortune 100. Wow. And that's how I got into it. And, I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of great people along the way. So,
yeah. So it's interesting, right? So you're there pitching them as a consultant, and then 2 years later, you're the CEO of the organization.
Yeah.
What was that 24 months like? Like what did you learn? And was that a whirlwind? Are there kind of key moments in those 24 months that you can recall and as pivotal moments in kind of your development or turning into a CEO?
I had a lot of great experience in the organizational development side, right? Mm-hmm. In the consulting, because I'd worked with a lot of companies of all sizes and was able to come in and out of different companies. And I was able to observe really good leaders and executive teams, and quite honestly, some really bad ones, mostly bad ones. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of learned the things I wanted to do and how I wanted to shape my management style and what not to do, to the point where actually in 2003, I published a book called 5 Management Principles and 1 Creed. And CREED is an acronym, CREAD, and it stands for Communication, Recognition, Empowerment, Accountability, and Development. And the thesis behind the book is that if you follow those 5 principles every single day with the folks that you manage, you will be successful. And I took that from my experience in consulting and brought that into technology. And I just needed to understand essentially the nuances of the technology market. And so I combined my consulting experience with that from a business perspective and was able to come up with, something that worked. And again, I was really fortunate to work with a lot of great people. I look back at I was a really young CEO. I was 32 years old and 33, I think, by the time we ended up doing the deal with Staples. So I was a CEO or president at the time, because when Staples did the deal, I became president instead of CEO. But mm-hmm. I was in charge of a technology business unit, the only one that Staples had at a really young age. So I was fortunate to have some really great mentors at Staples. Jay Baitler is someone that I still talk to and look up to today. He's taught me so much about how to scale an organization and how to think about strategy and just how to manage people. And then we had a fantastic team of folks at Thrive. Like, I look back and they're all doing unbelievable things. The folks on our executive team, the former CEO of Thrive before me, he's now doing implementations for Traction. And then our CFO has an outsourced bookkeeping company. John Barrows, who was our VP of sales, is like a sales training guru out there. He's Salesforce, LinkedIn, Google, Dropbox, Slack. These are all companies that he trains the salespeople for. Mike Korkalakis and Josh Oakes were on the team. They now lead an MSP of their own that's doing fantastic. So just you go up and down the list, and we had a great team, and I learned a ton with that team, and then being able to be exposed to some really great executives at Staples.
Yes, it's important to have a great team, and it's also equally important to have mentors along the way. What was most challenging about going from running this MSP to being, part of a Fortune 100 organization, and something new for them, right? I mean, imagine it's probably, maybe they were hands off and they let you kind of be creative and kind of figure it out. But I imagine it's got to be pretty challenging, especially at 32.
Yeah,
something like that.
33
Yeah.
by then, but
Yeah.
yeah. So it was difficult from the standpoint that they didn't understand our business really. They knew that they wanted to get into business, and their thesis for buying us was fantastic. And that was all Jay Baitler. And I'll never forget the first time I met him, I walked into his office and he threw down a portfolio that had a pad of paper in it. And he said, today we sell a lot of these. 10 years from now, we're not going to sell nearly as many. We need to figure out how to sell things with plugs that require plugs. In order to do that, we need to figure out how to service things with plugs. And that's why you're sitting right there.
Wow.
And I was taken back. This guy was awesome and intimidating all at the same time. And so the thesis was great. Then after the acquisition, it was, okay, how do we take a massive organization that's fantastic, is literally the leader in their industry, Staples, selling papers and pencils and ink and toner, office products to literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of small businesses around the world. How do you get them to then look at you and say you're a viable offering on the technology side? And in the end, like, it didn't take off like I had thought it would. On paper, it makes total sense. You've got, let's just call it 100,000 small businesses that companies selling office products into. And you're now trying to sell those same customers outsource IT. And the feedback a lot of the time was, look, I don't want to buy technology from the people I buy my paper and pencils from. So it was definitely a challenge. In retrospect, I wish that I had my Kaseya experience before that experience. Because at Kaseya, I've learned a lot more about go-to-market and about upsell and cross-sell, because obviously that's how you and I know each other, Kevin. And so you've experienced that as well. And, it's an engine there. So if I had that experience, I think back then it may have turned out a little bit better. So Staples ended up selling. I left to go to a company called Independence IT in 2013. I think it was mid 2014. Staples ended up selling Thrive to telecom and then eventually private equity. And they're doing fantastic today. And I still have a bunch of friends there, and it's awesome. They're doing really, really well. So I know the CEO, Rob Stevenson, and the president, Bill McLaughlin, they're top notch. So the company's in great hands and has been for a while. And it's probably better that it didn't work out because, the company, I don't know if the company would have ever gotten to the heights that now within Staples and without private equity.
Yeah. To your point, they certainly are a powerhouse. Kind of the MSP space, just how large and just how successful they've been. So it sounds like it all worked out well in the end. So after I guess Staples, or you kind of moved on to Independence, is that more of a lateral, like kind of getting back into the space, kind of getting away from the big, monolith of a Staples? What was the drive to go over to Independence at that point?
Yeah. So the great part about my Thrive Staples experience is I got the best of both. Like by the time I left Thrive, we had about 100 employees within Thrive. But then I got exposed to a 90,000 person organization, a couple times a week. Because by the time I left, I had been promoted and I had something called the Central Services Organization that was under me, which was essentially their version of Geek Squad. And that was for a short time, but it was really great experience and really cool. So I got the best of both, like big and small. The moving force or driver for me to move to Independence IT was I wanted to be on the vendor side of the equation in the software side. I had been on obviously the MSP services side, but I hadn't been on the software side yet. And I felt like Independence IT was a pioneer in the cloud workspace industry. And I wanted to see if I could give that a go. And, we ended up, I think starting out really well. And we ended up selling that company to CloudJumper. And then eventually CloudJumper sold it to NetApp. So the technology was great. It's not, I think that the total addressable market based on where things are going isn't as big now as it was then. So I'm actually glad the way things worked out. And then from there, I found my way to Kaseya and spent 4.5 years at Kaseya, and that was a great learning experience. And, was able to work with Fred very closely and learn a lot about go-to-market and a lot about acquisitions. I mean, firsthand, right? Like that's how you and I met, because, I said, we need to acquire your company, ideation. And so that's how you and I know each other. But obviously we made a ton of acquisitions at Kaseya and then put them into the engine and was able to grow that. So just learned a ton there and very grateful for my experience there. And then that's what led me to SaaS Alerts.
Yeah. So we'll get to SaaS Alerts in a minute. So I want to kind of pull on that thread a little bit, while being at Kaseya, because you mentioned, if you'd known what you knew from your experience at Kaseya, if you knew that back in the day, maybe there was a different outcome, with how things worked out with Thrive and its ability to, integrate or be synergistic with the broader staples. But, what are some of the key lessons that you learned, while at Kaseya? I know I've got a ton of amazing lessons learned at scale, and acquisitions and stuff like that. But I guess, what elements of that has helped translate into how you've been successful with SaaS Alerts?
Yeah, I think the importance of product marketing and messaging, packaging and positioning and pricing. When I look back now, I was kind of clueless about the science of all of that. So that's my biggest takeaway. And look, I know there are people out there that, aren't fans of Kaseya for whatever reason, but it's an organization that does very, very big numbers. It sells a lot of software and has become, the 800-pound gorilla in the software space, in the MSP ecosystem software space. And a lot has to do with how a well-oiled machine they have on the go-to-market side, which is understanding essentially the market very well and how to message the products and services that the market needs. So that's my biggest takeaway from that company. And, there's things that, good and bad you take from everywhere.
Sure.
Right. And you try to eliminate the bad and only take the good. And in the end, as you keep going from place to place and opportunity to opportunity, you hopefully end up with something better and better every time.
Yeah, that's the goal anyway, right?
That's the goal.
So you're there for a couple of years and you had this, said maybe check the box, or I don't know what the impetus was, but then you found yourself, you found a way over to, being on the founding team of SaaS Alerts. So,
Yeah.
Was it, you need that next, thing to conquer, or what was the impetus behind, jumping on and doing SaaS Alerts?
Yeah. I was happy at Kaseya and I did 4.5 years there. But I mentioned Independence IT before, the cloud workspace company.
Mm-hmm.
I'd worked with two guys there, Chip Buck and Seth Bostock, who became friends of mine. And, we split up after the company was sold and everything. Kept in touch with them, but, certainly not day to day, more like, quarter to quarter. So it was at some point, I'm working at Kaseya, and they call me up and they're like, look, we got a new idea. And we think that it could be something. I'm like, well, what is it? And they take me through the whole thing, the idea for SaaS Alerts, SaaS security monitoring, because they had just experienced the same exact pain point in their respective companies. They were CTOs in two different companies at the same time, but small companies. And I said, I love the idea. Like, this is definitely a problem that needs to be solved. What is your go-to-market? And they said, enterprise. And I said, that's where you lost me. I said, you're going to go toe-to-toe with enterprise. You're going to create an enterprise sales team. Like, that is super expensive. And, I don't know how you're going to do it with limited funds. I said, I'll tell you what. So I see a need for this in the MSP space. If you build it for the MSP space, then, I'll throw you some money. I'll be an investor and go off and prosper, and just keep me posted on what you're doing. So they went off and they built it. And I would hear from them, every couple months, see how the product, was coming along, whatever. And then it was the fall of 2020. They came to me and said, look, we've got the beta and we've got 10 MSPs on it. And they're loving it. And this is what they're saying. At the same time, I'm doing my thing at Kaseya, and I'm having conversations with a lot of MSPs, and I'm hearing this need. I never forget a conversation I had with an MSP in Wisconsin right around the same time. And I was, we did these pulse checks, right, at Kaseya. So as an executive at Kaseya, you're responsible for talking to at least, I think it was 7 or 8 customers every single month. And, you're evaluated on it, right? Like it's a number that is looked at every single week in the exec call. So I was on one of these pulse checks, and one of the things you got to do is you got to find out about the business, understand how the business is doing, and then how can Kaseya help them do better. And so I was going through the guy's business with him, and he said, yeah, we've got 4,000 users, and we've got 900 servers under management. We had 1,200 this time last year, and we use Sentinel-1 for EDR, and we use, Sophos. And I'm like, wait a second. Let's back up for a second. I said, you lost 300 servers under management in a year? You went from 1,200 down to 900? He said, yeah. I said, why? How? He's like, well, a lot of my customers are going on SaaS applications, so I don't have as many servers to manage. So I said, well, okay, I get that. So what are you doing about it? And he said, I don't know. What can I do about it? And that was a light bulb moment for me. At the same time, I know that my friends are building a product to solve that need, right? So they're coming to me right around that time, this is fall of 2020, saying, would you consider leaving Kaseya and becoming CEO of SaaS Alerts? And the timing was good because I had just fully vested all my options. And I had a great relationship with Fred, and I still do. And so in November of that year, I said, look, Fred, I've got this amazing opportunity. I think that it can really change the entire industry. And he took my resignation letter because I did it in person. It was sold. This is now COVID. So I went to New Jersey and I had the conversation with him, and he took the letter and he crumpled it up and threw it on the ground and said, no, we have to talk later. So we ended up after lunch talking again, and he understood, right? Like why I wanted to go. And eventually he said, look, you have my blessing. I don't want to lose you, but I understand what you're saying and why you think this is an opportunity. Can you just give us a couple months to like work through the end of the year and stuff? No problem. So January 20th it was good timing, by the way. And I was happy to give him that time anyway, but we were going GA in January, general availability in the software for SaaS Alerts. So I didn't really have that much to do there anyways until we had a product to sell. Mm-hmm. So it just turned out that my first day, January 20th, 2021, was literally the day that we went GA on the product.
Wow.
And then we had 10 beta customers, Kevin, 10 beta MSPs, billing a grand total of $1,000 a month. Mm-hmm. And today we have over 700 MSPs on the platform, and billing well over 500,000 users on the platform. So it's been a great ride, and I believe more today than ever that this category will end up changing the industry. And I get up every day excited about how we can do that and how SaaS Alerts can play a big part in that.
That's awesome. I remember early on, and you and I'd be texting or call you just to check in, and you could hear just the excitement. You hear the excitement still, obviously, because you guys are just, as you mentioned, kind of top of this, just growing like gangbusters, like a weed right now. But you could hear that, you were really passionate about it. Like, I've seen a lot of, folks go back into kind of a CEO role, or they jump into a tech startup, and you could tell when there's passion. You can tell when there's not passion, right? Mm-hmm. And you can tell when there's motivation to solve a problem. You can tell when there is not, right? And it's been cool to watch just the last 24 months or so. Was it 24 months? 36 months? I can't remember how long it's been.
Well, it was just 2 years in January, so okay. We're about essentially 25, 26 months in now.
Time flies. But yeah, just, to your point, right? You guys are solving a really, really important need in the marketplace. And I think, part of it, it's like an old Gretzky adage, or, I guess stolen by Michael Scott, right? Skate to where the puck is.
Right.
Or maybe that one was like you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, or whatever it is. But your ability.
He's got both.
Yeah. Yeah, but your ability to kind of see what's next, I think, is really impressive, right? And you guys have done just an amazing job in growth. I know there was public announcement about the private equity, and so you guys have just done just a fantastic job in such a short period, which has been great to see.
Yeah, we did the deal with Insight. I think you're alluding to the Insight deal we did in September.
Yeah. And what was that like? Was that to get that much validation that quick, and then have of all groups, Insight, where the powerhouses come in and validate you guys? What was that like?
It was fun. I mean, as fun as I guess that kind of experience can be, but I learned a ton. I dealt with Insight, at Kaseya, and I had actually met Mike Triplett for the first time in 2013 when we were looking for funding for Independence IT. Mm-hmm. So I had known Mike from then, and then obviously, Insight's the largest investor in Kaseya. So I knew him through Kaseya as well. And when it came down to a deal that we're going to do, because we were going to do something around that time frame, whether we just went out and just, raise more money or took a bigger deal with somebody else, the deal was really perfect with Insight, and I couldn't be happier that we did that deal. And I take a lot of pride in being an Insight CEO, because I believe that they are the best private equity firm out there, specifically in software. So good experience. It's been really good. People ask me all the time, after the deal, how is it? It's really great. They understand the dynamics of this market. They ask really good questions, but they're not intrusive, and they're really helpful. So I feel blessed that we ended up with Insight.
Yeah, it sounds like everything you'd want in a partner like that. And yeah, I mean, I remember some of those board meetings at Kaseya with Insight and meeting Triplet and Feline, and they're just top notch. And so
Yeah, I
no
know.
wonder they saw an opportunity to work with you, and they jumped on it. So
yeah, it's cool to be able to work with people that you worked with in past companies. You mentioned Mike Triplet and Feline. Feline really is our go-to person now in terms of day to day, and someone that's just has come to understand the space really well, and again, I really value all the feedback we get from that entire team there now.
Awesome. All right, so let's jump into the SaaS alert. So what's the if you're out there talking to an MSP, somebody's never heard of you, or even the product category, what's the elevator pitch? What do you lead with?
Yeah, well, I know you're a fan of the Simon Sinek book, Start with Why.
Yep.
And this one's really easy, Kevin. I go back. One of the things you said was, the ability to see what is coming. And I don't really think of it that way for myself. I don't think I'm a visionary in any way, but I definitely listen. Mm-hmm. And if you're willing to listen, then the market will tell you ultimately what it needs. And I'll go back to that conversation that I had with that MSP in Wisconsin with 4,000 users, that was losing, 300 servers a year under management. When you hear stories like that time and time and time again, then it's pretty easy to determine what should be coming next. So I always start with why. Why do we exist as a company? There is a transition that started a number of years ago. It's still happening. MSPs are certainly becoming aware of it. And it's on-prem to SaaS, because small businesses, not many of them have on-prem infrastructure anymore. Right. And then it's also on the security side, it's going from a device-centric approach to a user-centric approach. And we exist to help MSPs win on that transition. It's as simple as that. To better protect their customers, to drive incremental revenue, to lower their labor costs, right? That is what we're doing at SaaS Alerts to help MSPs win on this transition.
Awesome. So we got a couple comments from I guess this one's from LinkedIn. Pop this up. So Ian saying, do you see AI playing a greater role in threat detection response within the MSP vendor ecosystem? Do you see many benefits over existing algorithms, triggers, other than marketing buzzwords?
Definitely. So, our co-founder and CTO Chip Buck has really kind of programmed me to talk more about machine learning than AI. AI is really more, a buzzword that people like to talk about these days, and we're not there yet, but we're evolving to it. We're using machine learning today. And if you know our platform, there are 3 modules: manage MRR, manage, report, respond. And we're able to look at, or MSPs can create if-then statements on various threat activity to lock accounts and immediately respond to potential breaches, right? So over time, that will just get better and better and better with the technology platforms that we have access to and that we're building. So it's exciting, certainly. And, we want to reduce our costs as much as we can so we can continue to deliver, a high value, low cost product to the space.
So what does the space look like in 12 months from now? What, you guys are evolving rapidly, you're scaling rapidly, the technology is moving rapidly. I mean, what, is it even fair to, forecast or prognosticate or whatever, what are you as a platform, 12, 24 months from now? Because I can see so many add-ons to what you're doing to create almost a kind of a unified security platform. But that's just me, somewhat outside looking in. But I'd love to hear from you. Like, where are you guys going?
Yeah. So I can only say so much because otherwise my CTO would kill me. April 19th, we have a launch event. It's only for partners. So we're going to let partners know on April 19th what is new that's coming into the platform that I believe is game changing for them. And then we're announcing to the rest of the universe at the Connect IT global event in Las Vegas the following week.
Awesome.
So it's funny you mentioned the word unified because I'll tease this a little bit. The module is called Unify.
Oh, how about that? I swear that wasn't, he didn't give me the wink or, he didn't drop the dime on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we'll have that coming out in April. And then what's cool is that when we look out another 6 to 9 months, we're really excited about, we have 3 epics going on right now. So we'll have, that one coming out version 1 in April. And then July, August timeframe, we'll have another significant module coming out. And then end of third quarter, we'll have another one. So this product, you've seen the product from the beginning, Kevin. It's changed so much in the last 2 years. 2 years ago when we started this, there's no way we were going to do response. And our CTO was dead set against it for a number of reasons. But again, we listened to the market and we listened to what our partners were asking for and telling us. So we solicited a lot of really good feedback from a lot of really great MSPs. And we were able to incorporate that into the Respond module. And now we do automated response today. And I think that the next 3 modules that will be coming out will be equally, if not more, game changing.
So big T's, I guess. A couple of big T's. You got the partner announcement, then you got an announcement to connect, I guess, to the broader audience, and then you got, sounds like some pretty heavy hitting things in the roadmap.
So I want to tell you what's coming in the next 12 months. I just can't completely.
Totally get it. We don't want you to, we don't want your CTO mad at you from,
no, that's not a good thing.
Some podcast or live stream. So
he's a small guy, but he's fierce. So you don't want to mess with him. There
you go. Well, Jim, this has been, as all of our conversations have been fascinating, and I certainly get a lot out of them. What's the best way to get a hold of SaaS Alerts? You, the socials, the website.
Yeah, so we're on LinkedIn. You can go to our website. It's saasalerts.com. You can hit me on LinkedIn or Jim at saasalerts.com. So we've got a community call every Thursday called the SaaS MSP call. That's 1:00 Eastern every Thursday. Andrew Morgan from Reddit Boom and the Cyber Call, he actually moderates that because we are so serious about soliciting feedback and making sure that we're sharing best practices, and we're really actively working with and collaborating with our partners, that I didn't want anyone from SaaS Alerts to actually moderate that call. So as we're building out a community, I think it's important to have a third party do it. And that's why we have Andrew, who's been fantastic. Love Andrew Morgan. He does so much for our community, specifically, for the MSP security community. So people can always hit us there and just come in and check it out. This Thursday, we're giving our partners a sneak peek at the SASE report. SASE is SASI. It stands for SaaS Application Security Insights. And what we do, Kevin, is we aggregate and anonymize all the data from our platform from the year before, and we publish the trends from it. So it's a report that we're going over and giving everyone a sneak peek at this Thursday, and then we'll release it to the broader community next week. So those are the types of things we do on that call. It's not a sales pitch. We're not, trying to sign people up. We're trying to learn ourselves, and we're trying to educate as much as we can. Awesome.
Well, it's all about giving back and creating a community. And Andrew certainly has done a good job with that, with Cyber Call and Reddit Boom for sure. So it sounds like it's a really natural plug-in for you guys. So good stuff. Well, look, sir, I know you're busy. I know you at least want to get out and enjoy some of that Florida warm weather versus us fools up here in the Mid-Atlantic. But
I'm looking forward to around 5:30 today, actually 6, after my last call. My wife and I will take the dog out for a nice walk. So
there you go.
It's nice. It's much nicer to do in 82-degree weather than 32-degree weather. So
Amen. Well, sir, again, I appreciate you. I appreciate all your support over the years and words of wisdom and our collaborations. And everybody check out SaaS Alerts, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Awesome. Thanks, Kev.
Yep, thanks.
Okay.